Hey, and welcome back to the next episode of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, the podcast for guys who like right hand drives. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And this is episode 119. And I said last episode, or maybe the episode before, I don't know, but I said we were going to start lining up the guests.
Yeah.
And so today we have another guest. And this guy, you know, he actually, if you've been following us on Instagram, like the first reel I ever posted on the Right Hand Drive Guys Instagram was not this guy, but his voice.
Yeah.
And he was inspecting a car in Japan for me through Trevor. And it was like iconic the way he described the car. And I'll never forget it for as long as I live. And he said the car was fucking sex. And hearing that in Japan, hearing like an Australian accent in Japan, it was mind-blowing for me. And the car ended up being fucking sex for real.
Yeah, for real.
So his
quality inspection.
His inspection was on point. And I am talking about nobody other than Nipon Nick. And Nipon Nick used to, and I don't know if you get into this, he used to work for Zap Exports. Didn't work out between them. Oh, well, he moved on. He's still doing his inspection deal. But that's how we met him. Yeah. I ended up posting that reel, and I had no clue who he was because I couldn't see his face. He was just a voice behind the video. And then he ends up commenting, "Hey, that was me. Nice car." And I'm like, oh, shoot, it's this guy. And, you know, that was years ago now. And, you know, we've seen him go through some phases, but through them all, he's had the Adidas tracksuit.
Dude, definitely.
He
hasn't lost that thing.
Yeah, he is known for dressing like that. And so I'm sure he'll get into it. But we've been trying to get him on the podcast for quite a while now. Yeah. And he's been traveling all around the world and doing all these different things. And we're finally able to link back up with him. He's back in Japan.
Nice, dude.
So let's go ahead and just get right into it. This is episode 119 with Nick Tosaki. All right. And we're back with Nipon Nick. What's up, man?
It's good to finally meet you guys, man. This has been a long time in the making.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're talking about it's been, you know, a few years. I think we had planned on you being one of the first guests, you know, back when we started taking guests. So it is cool to finally get to this point. Man, I kind of mentioned it in the intro, but I like your voice is burnt into my brain with the fucking sex from when you inspected that GTT. Like that's something I've told
mine too
100 times for sure.
I inspected your cars?
No way!
I didn't know that. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's how I ended up finding out about you was, you know, Trevor King. He had you inspect my black GTT, and it was a super clean black GTT, and you just
right?
Yeah, you just described it as fucking sex, and that was like just iconic to us because, you know, we hadn't really dealt with many dudes inspecting, and then, you know, you got a guy with like an Australian accent just ripping it out. So yeah, no, that was cool, man.
Was that the black one at Fuji Cars in Chiba?
I think so. Yep.
It was black on gold BBS.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, that was a nice car. That was a really nice car. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of when we got introduced to you. And ever since, we've just been watching you do your thing, man. Go through life in different places. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I'll say that much.
So we kind of know who you are, you know, to an extent. But can you tell the listeners, like, who is Nipon Nick? Like, what's your deal, man?
Man, so I moved to Japan in 2018, like sort of mid 2018. I moved there with kind of no idea of what I was doing. I eventually found my way into cars. You know, cars were a big hobby and passion of mine back in Australia, and I sort of found my way into them in Japan. And for probably about 5 years, I went around Japan inspecting cars prior to export. And so that took me to every single prefecture except for Okinawa. I went to every single part of Japan.
Oh, wow.
That's decent.
So, yeah. So every day was a new town, new city, checking a new car. And then sort of on my time off, I'd like to do a bit of urban exploring. So, yeah.
Sounds like the dream.
I've seen a lot of Japan. It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
So pretty much your profession for the past, 5, 6, 7 years has been mainly car inspections.
Car inspections and also sales as well.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
Exporting. But yeah, my bread and butter in the beginning was just inspections, and then I slowly drifted towards, the export side of things as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. A little more financially, a little better doing the full export, right?
Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, while inspecting these cars, you've had to have come across some pretty shady shit, right? Like just some cars that were advertised as one thing or major surprises. Can you let us in on a few cars that maybe you inspected that you were just like, damn?
Yeah.
So the thing is Japanese people are pretty honest for the most part. I mean, when you're standing there with the car, with the person that's selling it, I haven't really encountered somebody that's directly lied to my face. That Japanese people sort of won't do that. I mean, they might dishonestly list a car, and then when you go there to physically view it, it's just completely different from what you went to go and look at. I mean, I was going through my notes last night, and I mean, what have I got here? So, I mean, there was one time that I went to a chop shop in Chiba. That was pretty out there. I've definitely inspected cars before, and the VIN has not been correct and been obviously restamped. One thing too is that I've sort of noticed a lot is if you look on R34 GTTs, the speedometer is different between a Series 1 and a Series 2. So the Series 1 speedometer is all gray. And then when you look at the Series 2, it'll have a silver insert in the middle. And the Series 2s, I think, started in 2000 or 2001. And I went to inspect plenty of, 99 and 98 34 GTTs. And you would look at the cluster and it was a Series 2, which was, so clearly it had been swapped. But yeah, I mean, lots of dodgy repairs, lots of rust. The 34 strut tops sort of go without saying. I think out of all the cars that I would regularly check, the worst would be Skylines and Evos, 100%.
So, I mean, for the most part, right, just for our listeners, when the inspector goes there, the Japanese person's going to be honest because it's on site, right? For the most part, these guys aren't really willing to lie to you.
I've never, in all of my experience, I've never had somebody lie to my face. No.
I see. That's a good thing, right? I mean, when it comes to buying a car and having somebody inspect it for you, yeah. I mean, I can't say the same about America. They'll lie right to your face. Yeah, for sure. They'll tell you it has 4 wheels, and you can see it only has 2, but they swear it has 4 wheels. It's insane. It really is. And so then you've probably dealt with some dealers. A lot of time these inspections are at dealers because that's how it works in Japan, right?
Yeah, I want to say that I've probably visited every single dealer in Kanto multiple times.
Wow.
I want to say.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah.
So have you ever came across any dealerships that are notorious for bad work, or any dealerships to avoid when you see them pop up on GoNet or anything like that?
To be perfectly honest, there's one that I want to say. I mean, look, out of all of them, right? Like all of them, probably with the exception of one or two, have always had really good and really bad cars. Like there is one though that I think consistently had bad cars across every single location that I went to. But I know people that work there, and I kind of don't want to say too much bad about them. But there is one that comes to mind. Yes,
I can respect
it's
that.
a particular. I will say it's a fruit. It's named after a fruit. I'll say that.
Okay, got it.
So, are there any that are like particularly good, like that you see and you're like, oh, okay, that's going to be a quality car 100% of the time?
So, like your car, I think I inspected a lot of cars at all of Fuji Car's locations, and I don't think I ever inspected a bad car there, like ever. Like their prices were pretty expensive, like compared to the rest of the market. But I never think I saw a bad car there. They were consistently good. They were consistently expensive, but they were consistently good.
So, okay, Fuji Cars is, if you see a car from Fuji Cars, maybe consider that one, even if the price is a little more.
Yeah, Fuji Cars was good. Like all of them, like even GTNet. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad, and that was usually the theme that was consistent across most of the dealers. Like, you know, most of them would sell junk and then also sell good cars, like side by side. You know, there was no real, consistency to it.
It makes sense. There's kind of the junk is for somebody that wants a project that has a low budget, and the good cars are for somebody that doesn't want to deal with a project and has a higher budget. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Right.
So, I mean, all right. So you've inspected. What do you think? Thousands, hundreds of cars?
If you want to include auction, I would say thousands. If we're just strictly speaking about dealer cars, probably hundreds, maybe close to 1,000.
So there has to be for Nipon Nick, there has to be one car out of all these inspections that you loved. It was the favorite car you've ever inspected. Which one is that?
Let me think. I was going back through my notes last night, and probably I think the most interesting one that I ever got to inspect was that it was the ABC wide body Benz. I think that's now in Florida or something somewhere, and they've made multiple YouTube videos about it. But that was awesome. Inspecting that was pretty cool.
Oh, so that was you that got to inspect that one.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. But yeah, there's too many to count. There was I think a lot of I got to inspect a few Bosozoku cars as well. Those are really cool. Those are awesome.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think some of these cars ever even go to a dealer or the auction. Like here they would end up private sale.
Yeah.
You would think, and the fact that some of these like iconic cars end up at an auction or at a dealership.
Well, that's the thing. So there isn't really a culture in Japan of selling cars privately. I mean, the only people that sell their cars privately are like car otaku and car nerds. Like 99% of Japanese people will walk into a dealer, buy their car there, and then drive it for a few years and then return it to the dealership. That's how it works. Because Japanese people, there's privacy concerns about paperwork and that kind of thing, and they're scared of dealing with people. So they don't want to sell their car privately. It's very rare that you will find somebody selling their car privately. Very rare. It'll only be car otaku. You'll never find a person selling like a normie car privately. It doesn't happen.
That's wild. That. I mean, I guess it's a good turnover for the dealership because they know to expect the used cars. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I feel like they probably lose out a bit.
Yeah.
Because here, I'm sure as private sale, you get an extra little bit because you're not dealing with the dealership because it's person to person.
Yeah,
So,
100. But Japanese people don't really think in terms of money. They're a bit, they're a bit kind of different. I mean, they just follow the rules and do what society expects of them. So it's not all about money. So if the norm is to return the car to the dealership after driving it for 2 years and shotgun expires, like that's what Japanese people are going to do.
oh,
So
wow.
it's just kind of the way of the world.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. I mean, you definitely you do see a ton of dealerships, and I guess that makes sense. So, I mean, we're trying to, through this episode, we're trying to just give the listeners a better insight on getting a car from Japan, right? And
Right.
so what would you say is like the most common red flag with JDM cars? Like when our listeners are looking for a car, what should they really look out for?
I mean, I wouldn't say that JDM cars are really special or different from any other car. I mean, I would say that, when I was inspecting cars and, basically checking them and then relaying the information back to people overseas, I mean, I would just be doing all the standard checks that I would be doing when I was personally buying a car. So, I mean, like any car, if you're buying a car from Japan, you want to run the VIN and check the history of the car. Take a look at previous auction reports if it has any. You want to make sure that the mileage lines up and makes sense. If the car went to auction 3 years ago and at that time it had 100,000 kilometers and now today it only has 50, then obviously it's been tampered. Right. And so, you want to make sure that mileage isn't tampered. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any kind of bad repairs. The quality of work in Japan is like quite bad, repair work and paint jobs and that kind of thing. It's not good. And yeah, it just, I guess coming from the perspective of if you're overseas, you just want to have a good inspector that knows what the hell they're doing. So just check the car, make sure it's not rusty, make sure when you don't start it up, it blows oil and black smoke out of the exhaust and the engine's tapping. You just want to check the car and just, check it like you would any car, I feel like.
So pretty much definitely don't do it without an inspector. Like don't buy sight unseen.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
100%. If there's any red flag that, I would just think in general, it's low mileage cars. I've never ever been a fan of low mileage cars. In all of my experience, not every single, but most of the low mileage cars I've been to inspect have all been garbage. Like it's not like the culture in Japan is different. If you have a low mileage car, it's not because it's been stored in a climate controlled garage somewhere. If you have a low kilometer car, it's because it's been neglected and parked outside and nobody's ever driven it. When I was always checking cars, I always preferred the high kilometer cars that had been driven and then would come with a massive thick book of receipts with money being spent on the car. I always liked that personally.
That does make sense, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
If somebody drove it and maintained it, it's more than likely reliable. If somebody just put it, off to the side of their house and rarely ever drove it, it probably needs a lot replaced.
Correct. And it's neglect, bro. It's neglect. These cars up until very, very recently were very, very cheap, and Japanese people just buy them, get sick of them and just park them off to the side, and they just sit there for, the last 20 years and just rot.
Yeah, we've all seen those type of videos.
Yeah.
But what do you drive, man?
At the moment, as we call them in Australia, foot falcons. So at the moment, I do not have a car.
Oh, okay. You're
at the moment, I do not.
Foot Falcon type of guy.
Not to be confused with the Ford Falcon.
Yeah, Foot Falcon.
But you've definitely, I've seen them. You've had cars. What's the favorite car that you've had?
Absolutely. So I started my career, when I was a kid, right, in Australia. In Australia, the only two cars to have were Nissan and Mazda. So you either had a Skyline, a Silvia, or an RX-7. Those were the three cars that you had. And I never even looked at Toyotas. Like I always thought Toyotas are, you know, this sort of like, I'd look at a Chaser or something and think like, ew, like it's a Camry. Like what is this like goofy four-door car? And then I came to Japan and then everything changed. And then I ended up getting a JZX 110 and it was the best car I ever owned, 100%. So yeah, for me, it's one JZ or nothing.
Wow, that's crazy. That's what Jaren had too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That seems to be a popular car with like non-American guys, you know?
Yeah, I mean, in Japan, there's kind of a saying. They say that like when you're a kid, you'll start off with a Nissan, and then when you finally, as they say, like you graduate, then you move to Toyota.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, some guys would hate to hear that because a lot of us haven't graduated, huh?
Well, I mean, look, it's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, you buy like a 1JZ powered car, it requires no maintenance, no nothing, and you can just hammer that car just forever. I mean, they're indestructible. They're literally indestructible. And that's why if you go to, you know, any drift track in Japan, it's just all JZXs.
Yeah,
And maybe there might be a couple of Sylvias, but it's all one JZ, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when it's reliable and you can drive it to and from the track. And it really does make sense.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. So being on both sides of the fence, you know, you've lived in Australia, you grew up there, and then living in Japan for the last few years, what are some of the differences that you can see between the JDM and the Australian car scene?
There's a lot. I mean, the thing is like culture is like a product of the people, and I feel that like you know, in Japan, some people do some things a certain way, and other people do some things another way, and it's like I don't want to generalize. Because you know both scenes do the same things in their own way, but I feel as though something that really and truly makes the Japanese car scene unique is that I feel and I want to say that Japanese people do not have mechanical sympathy. They don't. Like Westerners, like in Australia and stuff, like, you know, we want to really care for our cars and spend all our money on them and, you know, get a perfect paint job and get them perfect and take them to shows. Like in Japan, the enjoyment comes from driving it.
Yeah.
Like the enjoyment comes from driving. So in Japan, people buy these cars and just drive them and beat the absolute shit out of them. Whereas, you know, in Australia, people will maybe spend a ton of money building a show car that they never drive, which I think is maybe a little bit also similar to America as well.
Yeah.
In Japan, there's none of that. People buy them, drive them, destroy them, and then buy another one. They don't care. You know, it's all about just driving.
I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Like it's the true passion in the enjoyment as opposed to kind of creating a trophy.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, you speak to Japanese guys and it's not like, you know, they're not going to tell you how much money they've spent on their car or, you know, they're not going to brag about it. They're going to tell you about like, you know, oh, I went to this track and I went here and I did this and I did that. And, oh, bro, you know, you see this crack on my bumper? Yeah, I got that sliding around the corner at like, you know, on the toe gate. That's their brag. It's not, oh, bro, look how perfect my paint is. It's like, nah, look, you see these rock chips? Yeah, I got those going 300 kilometers on the one gun. Yeah, they're cool guys. They're cool guys, man.
That does make sense. Like we're bragging about how clean our cars are. They're bragging about how used and dirty they are, so to speak, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I love about it. That's what I love about it.
I think we could take a note or two from that in the sense, you know, in the sense of Americans.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool that it's in your garage, but like, what have you done with it?
Right. Right.
So,
and that's what kind of the JDM scene is all about. It's like, you know, it's not about how cool your car is. It's about how cool you are for, you know, the things that you've done with your car, kind of thing. It's cool, bro. It's cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so, you know, obviously in Japan, there's a lot of circuits. There's a lot of like road course type tracks, right?
Yeah.
But what I've heard about Australia is it's all drag strips. Like you guys just, or those guys just make big horsepower and go in a straight line. Is that actually true?
Straight lines and circles. So we really like burnouts.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. You guys rip it on those. The Australian burnouts
So,
kill.
yeah, the burnout culture is pretty mega. Drifting's pretty mega. I mean, I think back when I was at GTR Fest last year, I think I bore witness to the world record for a manual 34 going down the drag strip. I think it got, I can't remember now, maybe 8 seconds or something at the time. But yeah, Australians do a lot of things pretty well.
That's cool. But so not a big like circuit scene there though. Like I've obviously never been to Australia, so I'm not sure. But like
there is.
Oh,
there is. I mean, they have world time attack.
Okay.
You know, which is a pretty big circuit thing. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on down there. It's pretty good.
So all right, so now a little more about Nick, right? Like some of your persona is perceived to be bad boy, right? Like you're not necessarily on the straight and narrow. You kind of live a little bit more on the edge. Would you say that that's like a little bit accurate?
I know. I mean, I'd probably use unhinged, but yeah, I mean, I would say that's correct.
Unhinged, got it.
And so, like, we got to ask a few questions. So, what's up with the tracksuits? Because I think they're dope as hell. Like, I see you in those tracksuits, and you like literally you go with those tracksuits so well. What's up with them?
Man, I don't even know how that started, man. I think like, you know, I had a tracksuit that I would wear for inspections, and then I just think that, you know, because I was posting every day before my Instagram got deleted before I got canceled. I think I posted like 3 pictures in succession of me just wearing that like Adidas tracksuit, and then ever since that it just kind of stuck. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna run with it, and it just became a gigantic meme after a while. So.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It's cool how some of those things come up and that becomes, you know, in part what you're known for, right? Like, oh no, that guy that inspects cars in the tracksuit. Yeah, that's Nick. That's pretty cool. Also, so on your Instagram, your like logo,
the
and
avatar,
we've noticed it a few times. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's the deal? Is it the Donki 𝐀𝐒𝐇𝐆? Is that it?
Is that it?
What's the deal with that?
Oh, man, so there's this kind of meme about Donki 𝐀𝐒𝐇𝐆, right, in Japan. It's like Donki is seen as this place where like delinquents and Yankees hang out. Now, if you're in Tokyo, no, it is. Like if you're in Tokyo, like you're not gonna see it. But if you go to any donkey that has a parking lot, okay, if any donkey that has a parking lot, at any given point, at any given time, you go there, the entire parking lot is going to be filled out full of, you know, like crowns and just, you know, cars that are just sitting on their nuts. And there'll be a ton of like Japanese Yankees and just hanging around smoking cigarettes and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's a meme. It's a meme. And like, you know, even, you know, my Japanese friends, I mean, you know, if you see like a Japanese guy that's maybe a bit of a Yankee or kind of like, you know, a delinquent, you sort of look at him and go, oh, he's a donkey boy.
Shoot.
Yeah. So that's kind of the image that Donki 𝐀𝐿 has in Japan. And so when I bought my crown, it was black. It was like full, you know, donkey spec, as we call it. And then one of my friends goes, "Oh, bro, you've got the full donkey car now. You're a donkey boy." And then, you know, and then there's the thing too, is like, I had the bleached hair. So that's like a Yankee thing. I didn't do it deliberately, but it's a Yankee thing. So I was this guy walking around with like bleached hair, wearing a tracksuit, driving a black Toyota Crown. It was like the full donkey package thing. So it was a meme, and I just ran with it.
That is, man, you just cleared that up real good.
Dude, that's really funny.
That's
the
cool.
donkey spec.
Like,
Yeah, donkey spec. Like if you see like because those cars are like so cheap in Japan, bro. Like I mean, any like early 2000s Crown is like literally like the one I used to drive. It was a 300,000 yen car. Like we're talking like a 2008 top of the line Toyota Crown. It's like $1,000 US. So anybody can afford these cars. Anybody can buy them. And so you'll have these 18, 20-year-old Japanese kids that buy them, cut the springs, slam them, put big wheels on them. That is a Donki Boy.
so what's a Yankee? Like you said Yankee a few times. I know what that means here, but
Right.
what does that mean there?
Brother, really? Okay, so, oh man, like a Yankee is, a Yankee is like, oh my God, it's like it's a Japanese delinquent. So like, Japanese Yankee is the kind of guy that would, bleach his hair, join a motorcycle gang or, drive around in a modified car and go beat people up and smoke cigarettes and, somebody that goes kind of against the societal grades. They're not somebody that, fits it.
Ah, I see. Yeah, they're kind of like a rebel.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so that's very like intertwined with, the car culture in Japan. It's very, very intertwined. Like, not every car otaku is a Yankee, but every Yankee is a car otaku. All of them.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah.
does make sense. That's pretty funny. Dang.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, like, we know that you've had a few run-ins with the Japanese police, right? And we were hoping you might have a story or two that would enlighten us on a few of those times that you've had to deal with the red flashing lights.
We're going to need a 3-hour mini series to get into that. So, yeah, I mean, where do I even start? I mean, okay, for starters, I did get arrested and I was like detained in a police station for 6 months. That happened, but which I would absolutely not recommend to anybody. You don't want to get arrested in Japan, bro. Like, just don't do it. But yeah, I used to get pulled over and drug searched almost daily. So,
Would you say that was because of your image, so to speak, like the bleached hair, the tracksuit, that type of thing, or was it because you were like a foreigner?
It's because it was a Toyota Crown. It was the car.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I had my S15, never had a problem. Had Miraginos, never had a problem. Had a 171 Athlete V Crown. Never had a problem. Had my Mark II, which was literally straight piped, and like you would drive down the street and like, the buildings were shaking. Never had a problem. Never had a problem. Got a 2008 black Crown, and I was literally pulled over like every single time I would see the house. I mean, if I was driving down the street and I saw a police car traveling in the opposite direction or behind me, like I was going to get pulled over. I just knew it. Like every single day. It was a daily occurrence for quite a while.
That's discouraging.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a whole thing behind that which I can go into, but yeah. I mean, they'll pull you over, they'll talk to you, and then, we want to search your car. And then they're going to ask you to get out and then go all the way through the car and then, sort of send you on your way. It was always drug searches.
Wow, that is, I wouldn't think that that's how it would be, but I guess because in America the perception is that there's zero drugs in Japan.
Yeah.
That's not the case. I see. So
No.
so they were just
No.
generalizing you, so to speak.
Okay, so there's a whole thing that you can go. There's a whole rabbit hole you can go down. But if you are to say go onto Japanese Twitter and do a search for in Japanese, if you do a search for curd crown, there's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down there. I mean, in Kawaguchi City. Kawaguchi City has the highest influx of refugees in all of Japan, right? And Kawaguchi is just located in Saitama, just out of Japan. And it has the highest, international, populace or whatever. It also has the highest rate of crime, the highest rate of drugs, the highest rate of whatever. All these Kurdish guys that come to Japan, and there's a lot of them because they abuse the refugee visa. The refugee visa, you can apply for it, and even though they reject 99% of people, the average processing time is 5 years. So you just need to rock up, apply for it, and then you can stay in Japan for 5 years and work. So this is what these Kurdish guys do, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot.
Wow.
Oh wow, the Kurdish. That's crazy.
They're Kurdish. So they will come and they all buy Toyota Crowns, and then they go crazy. And if you go into Twitter and you do a search for Kurd Crown, you will see that it is just 100 million news articles of them, getting drunk and crashing, running people over, committing crimes. It's a big thing. So I think a large part of me being pulled over was because I was driving a Crown and because they thought I was Kurdish.
Oh, okay.
It's a massive thing. It's a massive thing.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, whenever I feel like most people think about Japan, they don't think of all these other countries that, send the people there or people that migrate to Japan that are refugees, but that's pretty wild. I've never heard that before. Never even thought about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I lived there a long time, bro. I mean, a lot of people go to Japan and, they'll go on a holiday and, it's, oh, wow, it's so amazing. It's so clean. It's so awesome. And all of that is true, but, there's definitely an underbelly there, and it's real and it's a thing. And I think, the statistics are on average, I think 90% of all foreigners that move to Japan leave in the first 24 months. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's awesome. Japan is awesome, but it's not what you think it is. It's very, very different in reality.
Yeah, I'm a part of a few, groups where, they're foreigners living in Japan and whatnot. And I would agree with you that a lot of them leave very quickly, whether it's the language barrier, the low income, there's a lot of different reasons that, these foreigners went there like you said, on a holiday for 2 weeks, most amazing time ever, thought that that's how it would be. But once you get into regular society, it's actually quite the opposite, is what I've kind of gathered. Yeah. And so would you say, being an Australian in Japan inspecting cars, would you say that you maybe had a better time than a lot of these people that leave after 24 months? You were able to kind of make the best of it, would you say?
Oh, bro, 100%. I mean, I've got Japanese friends that were jealous, and they were like, bro, guys that are my age, 30, that were born and spent their entire lives in Japan, and they would always tell me, Nick, you've been here 5 years and you've seen more of Japan than I have in my entire life. That's what I valued more than anything, was just the ability to travel, which was awesome. So I'm very, very thankful for that. I mean, the money was for Japan, it was good. I mean, but for Japan, but it was good. It was good. I mean, the thing that I liked most was definitely traveling and exploring. And, like I said, I did a lot of, urban exploring when I was over there too. And, sort of exploring a lot of abandoned stuff. And that was awesome. That was my favorite part of Japan for sure.
Yeah.
Just the kind of stuff that when you're walking around the mountains in the middle of nowhere, the kind of stuff that you would just stumble across. You're just walking through the middle of nowhere and there's an abandoned house and there's an AMG hammer sitting in the driveway and you're like, huh? It's nuts. It's nuts.
And so I did actually catch some of that. Like that was kind of during more like the early years of Japan when you were there, was it?
Nah, that was the whole time.
Oh, the whole time.
That was the whole time. Yeah.
So what's real quick? Give us something to picture in our minds. What was the coolest abandoned spot that you ever found?
It's sort of widely published on the internet, but the Murugan mansion. So he was like, sort of not really Yakuza, but kind of Yakuza. And he owned a ton of real estate in Hawaii, and he was one of the richest people in Japan.
Wow.
He had one of the most expensive houses. I think it was probably the most expensive house in Japan. It was huge. He got done for tax evasion and went to jail.
Oh.
I was able to, I snuck into his place before they got posted on the internet, and that was amazing. He had, like taxidermy, tigers,
Wow.
incredible art collection. We're talking like katanas and suits and all of it. The whole place was built out of marble. It was pretty nuts.
That is pretty insane. And, I think as humans, period, the exploring is such like a gratifying thing to your soul, like when you get to explore something in the unknown and really like, I don't know what to call it, but when you really like picture what that was like when it was operating, that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And there's a lot of that in Japan. I mean, since the economy just basically went into like a free fall in the early 90s, a lot of people just, walked away from stuff, and you'll find some really interesting stuff. There's a lot of abandoned American muscle cars out there that was always cool to see. Lots of old hotels and theme parks, and it's pretty cool when you get out there.
Yeah, that is cool. And so how do the Japanese like police, is that not cool to be exploring like an abandoned theme park?
It kind of depends. It's sort of in this weird gray area because they technically don't belong to anybody. So, what would happen is in the 80s, in the bubble of Japan, you could walk into the bank and just get these gigantic interest-free loans. They were just giving them out to everybody. People would get these loans, go out into the middle of nowhere, build all this like crazy stuff. And then when the economy popped, people would just run away and abandon it, because in Japan, you've got property tax and you've got all this kind of stuff. So you would have all this amazing stuff in the middle of nowhere that effectively had no value and that the bank wouldn't even want, because if the bank was to, reclaim ownership of that, they would have to then pay taxes. So they've got to sit and pay taxes on this basically property that has zero value. So, where was I going with that? I completely.
whether it was like the police have a problem with you kind of exploring.
Oh, right. So basically, yeah, sorry, that's where I was going with that. Thank you. So yeah, they basically they don't have owners. So the original owners ran away. The banks didn't, reclaim ownership of it. So it kind of falls in this weird gray area. Like you shouldn't be in there. I wouldn't advise, being caught in a place like that, but it's sort of not illegal, but also not okay. You're trespassing on a property that doesn't technically have an owner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. There's no one to complain about it, but it's still not yours to be like on, so to speak. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
And so with what you're talking about with the bubble and how everything collapsed, was that the reason why you see these, $5,000 2-bedroom, houses out in Japan that are for sale right now, like super, super cheap houses that seem to almost be abandoned. Like there's still stuff in there, but it doesn't look like anybody's been there type thing. Right. You've seen these, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the population decline is like, it's a real thing. It's definitely a real thing. And, you're not going to see it when you're in any kind of major city. But I mean, I had heard a lot about it, and then on my travels, I'd occasionally have to visit one of these places to buy a car, and you'd walk through these towns, and I mean, it's like a full town or kind of small city, and there's literally no one living there. Like it's you're standing there, and it's very surreal. You're just looking around, and you're thinking like, where the hell are all the people? And there's nobody living there. And then maybe you might just see some little old lady, come out the front and walk down the street. But the population decline is a very real thing. A lot of people are dying, and their family are inheriting the houses, and they basically don't want to deal with it. Like, I mean, if you inherited some house in the middle of nowhere, like, what would you do with it? You'd sell it. But the problem is there's nobody that wants to buy them.
Oh, okay.
So there's a surplus of this stuff, and like homes and houses aren't an investment in Japan. It's not like America. Property is not an investment, and because of all the natural disasters and stuff, you can't get insurance and blah 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 blah. So in Japan, you buy the land, you build a house, and then kind of every 50, 60 years, you rip the house down and then throw a new one up.
Oh wow!
So that's just the way. Yeah, that's the way it works in Japan.
I see. And so these houses are pretty much super cheap money because the people who inherited them don't want to have to keep paying those taxes on a house in the middle of nowhere that they're never gonna live in.
Yeah. And I mean, Japanese people don't like old things. You might think that they like old things. They don't. Japanese people like new stuff. It's like, they'll look at a house like that and go, ooh. That's what always cracks me up about when I see people listing these homes, right? Like, oh, come in here and you can look at this tatami room. Japanese people hate tatami rooms, bro. Like, I mean, if you've ever lived in a house with a tatami room, they're like the most useless thing. It's like you have this entire room in your house that the floor is incredibly expensive. It's incredibly delicate. You can't put any furniture in there because if you do, it's going to damage it. But tatami rooms suck. And no houses built today have tatami rooms. They don't. It's like it's only a feature that you'll find in like houses built in the 60s and 70s, bro. These old houses suck. I'm not a fan of them at all, personally. I know people think, oh, it's an awesome idea, but no, bro. I mean, there's a reason why Japanese people don't buy them.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I know. I mean, do we as foreigners know better than people that live in Japan? I mean, they've decided that they suck and don't want to live in them, and it's like we come along and go, "Oh, bro, come on." I mean,
trying to bring them back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I mean, I guess it's good for Japan because you got these foreigners buying up all the old houses that nobody wants, but they probably quickly learn.
Especially, I mean, it's kind of a meme too, because I mean, they make visas so hard to get. So it's kind of like, yeah, bro, you can come and buy this property and invest money into the economy, but you can't live here. Like, you've got 3 months on a tourist visa, but come enjoy, spend your money.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is true, huh?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when it comes to those houses, like, I always see people saying, yeah, bro, I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to live in Japan. I'm like, okay, what visa are you going to get? Like, like, how do you intend on actually living there? Like, it's easy to buy property in Japan, sure. You want to get a visa and live there? Like, okay, like, how do you plan on doing that? You either need to study, or you need to marry a Japanese person, or you need to, run and operate a business in Japan. Like,
None of that's easy. That's for sure. No. Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception by people who visit is that, they're immediately Googling how to immigrate to Japan. And I think they quickly see that it's just not going to happen. I mean, yeah, we're not all lucky enough to marry a Japanese woman that can get us a visa,
Oh, bro, I would use the word lucky very loosely in marriage with the Japanese. Been there, done that. No.
Okay, we'll take that advice. I hope everybody's listening, and take that advice because maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Oh, brother, look, listen. If I never got married, I'd still have an S15 and my Mark II. So, like, don't get me started on that.
Damn, she took the S15.
To all the listeners, do not marry a Japanese person. Don't do it.
That's probably the best advice all episode, man.
Well, yeah, man. On that note, dude,
Yeah,
what's
forget the cars, bro. Forget the cars. Just do not marry a Japanese person. Anyway.
well, cool, man. On that note, what's next for Nick? Like, what do you got in the works? You know, what's coming up?
I don't know, man. I mean, I've been traveling around Southeast Asia lately, which has been cool. You know, I went to I'm gonna completely butcher the pronunciation of this, but I went to Kuala Lumpur. I
That's
said that
not
wrong.
bad.
That was awesome though. The car scene there is really cool, really really cool. I checked out Thailand a little bit. That was awesome. I'm probably going to be back in Japan at the end of the year. I kind of needed a break, man. Like, I lived there for what the hell's calling me? I lived there for 6 years and never left. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, bro. Like as soon as I moved there, COVID started. And I was kind of locked in. Now, you know, I know everybody's got different feelings about the vaccine. I personally didn't want to take it, so I wasn't allowed to leave, right, for like
Oh, yeah.
4 years or whatever. So, yeah, no, I needed a refresh. So I'm just traveling around. I'm still, exporting cars. So if anybody wants to buy a car from Japan, feel free to contact me. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be back in Japan this year.
So headed back to Japan. So in Malaysia, because we were kind of talking about this, a lot of parts, you know, end up for sale in Malaysia. So that must have been a pretty cool experience because they do have a pretty vibrant car scene over there.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I was super, super, super. Oh my god, I was super, super, super impressed.
That's cool, man. So what we need now is just to know, because, you know, I absolutely recommend you. You gave me the best inspection I've ever gotten, right? So how can somebody get a hold of you in order to get that export process kind of started?
If anybody wants a car from Japan or for Australia for that matter, I will say. So I've been doing a lot of cars out of Australia recently.
Oh,
So
okay.
did a Supra and an R33, and then at the moment we're just loading a container with 4 S15s. So yeah, no, I talk shit that, you know, I actually do get stuff done, believe it or not. But yeah, if anybody is interested in a car from Japan or Australia, then you can just flick me a message on Instagram and I can take care of it.
And so if you wanted to find a car in Australia, right, what would be
Yes.
the best avenue? Like, how can I come at you with a car that I want to buy? Where can I find that car, so to speak? Or should I just say to you, hey, Nick, I want a, you know, S15 Spec R, and then you give me options? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I always appreciate it when people do their own searching. I mean, it makes my life a lot easier. But I'm happy either way. I mean, I can search for you, or you can do your own searching. For Australia, I guess probably a lot like the States, it's Facebook Marketplace. Everything is done on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah.
So that makes it easy. You're not going to like GooNet and trying to, you know, find a car. Hopefully it's still available. You can just drag your cursor right over to Australia and start searching for GDRs.
Yeah, and I think especially for you American guys, like, you're going to find that prices in Australia are quite good. I mean, you know, the standard thing in Australia is like someone from West Sydney named Muhammad will buy an R33 GTR, will pump $100,000 into it, making it 1,000 horsepower, drive it for a month, get bored, and then list it for $50,000. Like that's
Sounds like a
standard. Yeah, it's the standard procedure in Australia. So you're going to see a lot of, like, you know, really sort of like top tier, big horsepower builds down there, if that's sort of what you're looking for.
And so, okay, last question. Would you say the quality of car is better in Japan or Australia?
Australia, hands down. Australia, hands down.
Okay, because like
Hands
you
down.
said,
Like,
a lot of guys
no question.
are keeping
No
like
question.
their stuff really nice and in garages, as opposed to like the, you know, beat it if you got it type thing in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Japan did a lot of cool stuff 20 years ago. It doesn't do anything anymore. I mean, when I was at GTR Fest, I bumped into Mr. Carbon Fiber, and I was talking to him for a little bit. And he was walking around and, he said to me that he said to me that it was very humbling as a Japanese person to walk around and see all these cars and every single part on them was Australian. Like the time of Japanese dominance had come to an end. I mean, in Japan, people are still playing around with Power FCs and all this kind of like outdated stuff.
Yeah, they are.
And if you look at these big modern high horsepower builds, you're not going to find a single Japanese part on them anymore. It's all obsolete.
Yeah,
So
that is
I mean,
true.
It's true, bro. It's true. I mean, no disrespect to the Japanese, but they haven't done anything in a very long time.
Yeah, they've kind of coasted on all the work they did in the 90s and just kind of let it be. Yeah, that does make sense. All right, man. Hey, this is the part of the podcast where you kind of give out your Instagram and any way to contact you.
Okay, sure. So if anybody does want to contact me to either just buy a car or talk shit, I'm up for both. My old Instagram was Nipon_Nick, but I got cancelled. I made a new one now, and I'm just repopulating that at the moment. So that is Nipon NIPPON .Nick NICK.
Okay, cool. That's dope. I definitely recommend getting a hold of Nick if you're interested. And yeah, even just talking shit. He's a good dude to just talk shit to.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, anybody, come, let's go get beers, hang out, talk.
Yeah.
I'm down for anything.
Next time we're in Japan, if you're in Japan, we're definitely meeting up with you, dude. We wanna be a part of the Donki Boys, dude. If you'll let us in, like we would like to be a part of it.
I need to get a crown.
And you need to bleach your hair.
Trust me. The barrier of entry is very low. You just need a Toyota Crown and to chain smoke cigarettes. You'll be fine.
Okay, cool.
Dude, I'm there.
I'm down for it 100%, man. We appreciate you, man. It was really good to, like you said, finally kind of get to chat a little bit and, chop it up. We wish you the best of luck, dude. We hope that everything goes perfect in the way that you want it to go.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be in touch, man. But for tonight, peace.
Later, man.
Okay, no worries.
Dude, that guy's a hoot.
Dude, seriously.
Is that what you call it? I don't know what you call it, but I'm calling it a hoot. He is a hoot, dude.
Dude, yeah. Solid dude, man. He just makes me want to get a Toyota Crown to go hang out at the Donkey, you know?
Dude, yeah, I want
a cigarette.
I want to be a donkey boy, like heavy, dude. Like the way he described it sounded so awesome, dude.
Dude, that was pretty funny. Very informative episode, though.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the knowledge for sure.
Yeah, and it's cool to get a guy that's kind of been there, done that when it comes to Thailand, Malaysia, Australia. That's a broad Southeast Asian area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then to be involved in cars in all of the places.
Right.
That's really cool. I mean, like, I don't know. I've always thought the dude was pretty cool. He's got his own unique style.
Yeah.
So it was cool to really finally get him on there and just chop it up, like we said. And
yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, and just, I mean, the abandoned building thing. Now I'm like, oh, wow. Next time I go, where can I go break into places I shouldn't be and get?
Whoa, dude, relax.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, and like he says, you probably definitely don't want to go to Japanese jail, right? Like, what are those meals like?
I can't imagine, dude. I don't think I want to imagine.
Yeah,
staying out of there.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode. For sure, hit up Nick with anything you need. Just ask him questions, whatever. He's more than willing to support you in whatever you're trying to do. If you want to reach us, of course, at RHDGUIS, and you can find us on YouTube with the same thing. But for episode 119 with Nipon Nick, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.